Hello and welcome to Entertainment Weekly's What to Watch, the show where EW staff help you solve your viewing dilemmas. I'm your host, Gerrad Hall, and I'm joined today by Assistant Editor Mary Sollosi, Deputy Editor and Creative Director Tim Leong, and Editor-at-Large James Hibberd. Hello to all of you. Nice to see you. This week marks the return of one of entertainment's most indelible characters, Perry Mason. HBO is the latest network to take on this famed courtroom hero, portrayed this time by everyone's favorite former Russian spy, Matthew Rhys. Now, James, nice to see you, by the way. You are on the Perry Mason beat, so please tell everyone what they can expect from this new limited series.
Well, Perry Mason, it's a perfect one to talk about right now because it's the quintessential, dad show. It's a detective and legal drama set in 1932. It's total bygone era nostalgia. Matthew Rhys starts off like a classic sort of gumshoe private investigator that you probably haven't seen in a decent TV or movie, in at least a decade. John Lithgow plays his mentor. What's kind of most surprising about it is that you hear HBO is doing a reboot of Perry Mason, and you expect something that's maybe more along the lines of True Detective, which is super nihilistic and grim. This plays a bit more like if CBS updated Perry Mason, but in doing so, it's pitching it for a broad audience. It's almost radical in its traditionalness, if that makes sense. Yeah. It's such a throwback that it's almost bold.
I cringed when you said CBS, and not that there's anything wrong with CBS, but like you said, you're expecting, when you know it's HBO, there's very much something you're expecting from it. Of course, this is also associated with the HBO Max launch. Do you really think this is going to make any moves in terms of people wanting to check out HBO Max and sign up for that?
It's definitely going to fulfill. It's definitely going for a broader audience than HBO's traditional fare. And one thing that's interesting about it is that it was originally ordered as a series, and then they declared it was a limited series, basically a mini series. Yeah. And then they changed their mind again. They changed their mind again, like within the last month. So I think that they must be seeing some sort of potential there to potentially get a larger audience and continue it on.
Did you feel like Matthew Rhys, I think, in some ways is maybe a bit of an unexpected choice here? There's kind of a certain visual that people have of Perry Mason, but how did he work for you?
I mean, he works especially with where it begins, where he starts off as this sort of gumshoe private eye. He plays the sort of rumpled, downtrodden everyman really well. If you're a fan of his work in The Americans, he's actually much more likable in this role. Rhys is very closed off and kind of a cautious character in that show. And this, he gets to kind of loosen up a bit and show a broader range. But fun fact about this, the role is originally supposed to go to Robert Downey Jr., who's still a producer on the project. Yeah. Robert Downey Jr. was really obsessed with making this reboot happen, and pursued it and developed it for a long time, and then due to conflict, ended up having to give it over to Matthew Rhys.
I'm really looking forward to seeing Perry Mason. I think that the detective narrative has changed so much recently, especially because we're such a technological focused world right now. And I think what's really interesting about Perry Mason is that it is a no cell phone detective. I think is really interesting. This is nice, refreshing stab at it.
Yeah, he's not checking cell phone records to see where a call it pinged off of the last. Yeah, he's got to really put in the work here.
When I hear Perry Mason, the first thing I think of is honestly in the movie Clue when Miss Scarlett says Wadsworth is like Perry Mason when he figures everything out. So that was very vivid to me. She says, "Who are you, Perry Mason?" But that's my primary association with it. So I'm pretty new.
And they also kind of run the gamut of, there are comedic takes on this genre as well, obviously, and plenty of dramas. I mean, and certainly in recent years, you look at The Good Wife and then The Good Fight, how just stellar those series have been in the writing and the acting. I feel like they kind of set a new standard, perhaps.
Absolutely. I mean, I love those shows you just mentioned. I think what's great about The Good Fight is that it doesn't limit it to just the courtroom, and that it kind of takes that idea of what they're trying to do into different avenues, and they really kind of spin it on its head. So I think it's really interesting, as James has said, to kind of go back to this really traditional approach to it, and I'm really curious to see how it goes.
I mean, the advantage to television has always been that a court case gives you a structure. It gives you a structure to build an episode or a season of television around. And because of that, and because of the inherent drama involved in it, it's been mined through thousands upon thousands upon thousands of episodes. So that's both the advantage of a courtroom drama and the challenge of it. The advantage is it gives you this inherently dramatic, familiar structure. The challenge of it is, well, how do you make that interesting nowadays? And I think that's one of the reasons that Perry Mason decided to start off as a detective story, to explore the origin story and to go in some different directions. And so I think the big challenge for Perry Mason will be, if it does have a successful first season, what do you do for the second season?
Right. Yeah. Well, looking forward to that one. And this just in, the jury has reached its verdict, and it is unanimous. What to Watch is guilty of having to take a short break. So we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. We were just talking about Perry Mason, which many would consider a dad show. James even mentioned that. And it's perfect timing because this Sunday is Father's Day. Now, if you want an obvious way to celebrate the holiday, you can check out the documentary Dads, which premieres this weekend on Apple TV+. It's directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, and it features lots of Hollywood dads, including her own Ron. So very curious, do you all plan on watching this, or is there another quintessential dad series that you'd recommend for the big day?
Well, I have to be honest with you. My dad famously is impossible to get him to watch television. My mom is always trying to find something that he'll deign to sit through, but he does obsessively watch baseball every night, most summers. Obviously not this summer.
Yeah.
But honestly,
lots of classic games that they're replaying, but yeah.
Yeah. This weekend, actually, I was even thinking of this, especially because of all the MLB drama of them trying to come to terms to have a shortened season. And so I watched all of Pitch in like one sitting. I mean, not one sitting. It's 10 episodes. So about 3 games.
It's on Hulu, right?
Now. Yeah, it's just one season. It's 10 episodes about the first woman playing in the MLB. And I mean, it's fun. It's very baseball if you're missing it, like me and my dad. But,
I would think your dad's favorite movie would be Field of Dreams, which is that's like the quintessential baseball Father's Day.
He loves all the sports movies. Yes, I would say Field of Dreams, like League of Their Own. I remember him showing me League of Their Own when I was little because I'm a girl, so he knew I'd like it.
And right.
But yeah, I just love his movies. He loves like the classics of the Dad Canon, like spaghetti westerns and the Indiana Jones, all the sports movies. So that's watching movies with my dad or TV.
Tim, are you gonna check out that documentary, or what is on your viewing to-do list this weekend?
I think being a father, I don't want any more things to do. I think I feel that see that as a day where like kind of get a break from having watching things. So it wasn't on my agenda, but I'm curious to check it out maybe some other day.
Yeah, and it's Bryce Dallas Howard's directorial debut. So and she has a pretty good teacher in her own dad in those regards. James, do you have any recommendations?
Well, first of all, I was just thinking about Field of Dreams. I remember seeing Field of Dreams as a child, and even as a kid, thinking, this is pretty corny. I think it was the first time that cynicism started to emerge in me.
Excuse me, baseball is beautiful. It is poetry.
But my pick for the Dad Canon, and because the dad stereotype is for, in terms of entertainment, is watching the History Channel, and my choice is like the ultimate version of that, and that is HBO's Band of Brothers, which is like History Channel on steroids. It's 2001 miniseries masterpiece from producers Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks, and it basically came out of their collaboration from working on Saving Private Ryan. Now, Saving Private Ryan often tops the list when sites do best World War II movies ever made. Yeah. But because Band of Brothers is a miniseries, it usually gets left off those lists entirely. But I would make a case for it being better than any of them. It might not have the production values of Saving Private Ryan, or the star power of Hanks. But by the time you get to the end of those 10 episodes, you are so invested in those characters, and you get reminded through the use of occasional documentary, the interview footage, that they're not characters at all, but, real people who really went through this, which makes everything more impactful.
Mm-hmm. When I was starting to bring up this topic, I was going to say no World War II documentary suggestions, but Band of Brothers, like that's a whole other. That's on a whole other level. And you're right, that is it's a phenomenal miniseries if you've never watched. A little tough to watch sometimes, but it's very much worth it. And those are some great Father's Day picks. Thanks, you guys. That's our show. That's it. So make sure you check out more of our What to Watch picks on EW.com because Papa do preach. I have all kinds of them for you guys. Dad jokes for days. I'm your host, Gerrad Hall. Thank you to Mary Sollosi and James Hibberd and Tim Leong for talking TV and fathers with me. We'll see you next time on What to Watch.